I'm 74 now. I don't know how fast I got here so quick. Life is quick, man. It's short. And I don't want to live my life like I'm running on a treadmill, never getting anywhere. Like when do I get to be me? When do I get to do what I would do if I wasn't on that treadmill because I have to pay bills? Most of us, that's how we live. We work a job we don't really like, but we have to pay bills, so we're willing to do it. We're on this treadmill, we're running, but we're not getting anywhere. We're just paying bills. And then we get old and then we die. No, thank you.
Welcome back to another episode of the We Live to Build podcast. Today's episode is with Gary Shelton, the Coaching King, and he has purchased, grown, and sold 12 businesses in the last 50 years, all for a massive profit. And in this conversation, we talked about one of the main reasons why people never get to $1 million a year in revenue. And with his model, you are able to acquire businesses that are already running so that you can focus on growing them. And it was a very interesting conversation with him. So if you want to know more about mindset and founder's journey and his experience of growth over time and some of his personal history, then you're going to love this episode. Let's get to it. You told me that the vast majority of businesses will never hit $1 million a year in revenue, and yet you've been able to do it 12 times. What is it, do you think, that separates you from other people? And it's something that I believe people can learn, but what is it, do you think, that prevents people from getting there to begin with?
Mindset. I think the most important asset that you can have in any endeavor, whatever it is how you're thinking. First of all, have you made a decision to do something? And do you believe you will do it? Have you blocked out any doubts, any second thoughts? Have you reduced it to I'm doing this, one decision, one thought. I'm doing this. And I'm stepping forward to accomplish it. And I'm going to just simply make any adjustment that I need to make until I get to where I want to get to. And I'm never going to quit till I get there. That kind of mindset is required to be successful in business.
There's two interesting things that I've noticed. One is a lot of the people I meet who create businesses that go on to do over $1 million a year in revenue come from poor families, not rich families. Because and so the interesting points here is that I believe one of the reasons why they get there, despite the fact that they didn't grow up around money, is that they feel the need to help their family. And so that propels them to do whatever it takes to make the adjustments they need to make those changes. But at the same time, they also are starting from a place of maybe lacking of self-confidence or self-worth because they didn't know how to get there. They didn't have this mindset around money and how to attract it and what to do with it when you get there. So what was that experience for you? I mean, I'm not sure. I imagine you probably grew up in Detroit, not with a lot of money.
I had that experience, and when I was younger, I complained about being growing up poor. But as an adult, I came to understand that, you know what? It actually was a blessing to have those kinds of challenges that I had, where I had to live in public housing in Detroit and in Chicago, where my parents divorced when I was only 1 year old, where I didn't go to the same school from 1 year to the next until I got to middle school. These challenges forced me to innovate, forced me to challenge myself. Since I didn't like it, I didn't like that experience. I became a person that had a burning desire to not repeat it. You know, I raised two daughters as a single parent myself. I made sure they didn't have to experience what I experienced.
Making it so that they didn't have to struggle like you did as a kid, does that help them or did that hold them back in any way as adults?
Well, I believe that because I gave them balance, I did not spoil any daughter of mine. I had my grandfather, my mother's father. When I was 4 years old, I asked him for $1. Now, I had been told that he was a very successful man in the South, which he was. He built a funeral home, a grocery store, a motel, and he operated them as businesses. He built homes. He was successful. He asked me, how could I earn $1? I said, Papa, I'm just asking for $1 and you're rich. He said, hey, look, if I'm rich, I didn't get rich giving away dollars. How can you earn it? He did not give me the dollar. He made me earn it. And then I said, so I did earn it. And I come back to him proud. He's a living legend in my family. Papa, I have the $1. Great. What do you want it for? I want to buy Ruth some Easter candy. That's the little girl lived on the corner. He said, well, how much the candy cost? I didn't know this was a trick question. He said, how much does the candy cost? I said, $1. He said, well, you have to get some more money. But why do I need to get some more money? I'm not going to let you spend all of your money on that girl. He taught me how to save money right then and there. He cut up an apple in half, you cut that, cut that. You could decide what portion, but you save a portion of every dollar. And I did. And I graduated from Southwestern High School in 1969 with 25,000. That challenge he gave me balance. And that's what I gave my daughters, balance. Didn't spoil them, made sure that I was committed to their success in life, but I made sure they had a taste of reality.
So let's go back to the first business you had. You told me that you started it and 3 years later sold it for $1.5 million in, I believe, the 1970s.
I actually acquired it when I was a senior in college. Remember, I had a few dollars. I had saved money. And plus I had started investing in stocks when I was in the seventh grade as a result of reading the Wall Street Journal. At first, I was playing like I was buying stock, and I discovered, gee whiz, I would have made some money. And so I had my grandmother to take me, who raised me, by the way, take me and open an account at Merrill Lynch, and I started investing in the stock market. That's how I really got to that combination of saving and doing that got me to the 25,000. So I bought this business before health food was really a craze. I was ahead of the curve. I bought it in Tucson, Arizona. I'm from Detroit. People moving there for wealth, for health reasons, and that's how I got my first million when I sold it.
So you had some money saved, you acquired this business, but what did you have to do to enable yourself to make that business worth what you sold it for?
The difference between a successful business and a mom and pop, not so successful business, is systems. how do you how do you build this business in a way that it can succeed without you? You don't have to be there. Most mom and pop businesses that aren't successful, that don't get beyond 1 million, much coveted 1 million revenue mark, they're not operating with systems. They're not operating in a way that, hey, if I'm not here, I'm the founder, this is my great idea, but if I'm not here, this thing doesn't work. That is not creating a business that has value. When you create a business that can operate without you, it now has value to someone else. If I can come to acquire your business that you're operating systematically, that means all I need then is to acquire that system. When I acquire that business, and I don't have to know anything about that business, and I can be successful. But if it's a mom and pop business operating without systems, that gets a little tricky.
I know you've been doing this for decades now. So obviously there's a lot that you've learned, and hopefully we can cover that in a little bit. But I'm curious to know how you got the idea to acquire someone else's business to then grow it, especially when I imagine it wasn't easy to go between states at that time. It's obviously a lot easier now, but I know that you didn't uh, like. Did you move to Tucson to run this business, or did you stay in Detroit and talk to them by phone? Like, how did you manage that?
My first trip west, I went to a health food convention in Las Vegas, and that got me interested in eating healthy, that sort of thing. I met some people there, And that's how I discovered there was an opportunity to acquire a health food store and restaurant in Tucson, Arizona. Well, fortunately for me, I played high school basketball, and our arch rival coach became the first black coach at the University of Arizona, which was in Tucson. And so he recruited kids that I knew, and one kid in particular, Tommy Williams, who was a point guard like me, and he was my size. So I knew Tommy. I went there to visit. It's, and to see this business opportunity. And I met with Coach Fred Snowden to let him know that I was there. And so one thing kind of led to another.
So did you end up working with these two men or one of these men in this business? What happened with that?
The business was white owned, and so I had the founder to agree to stay for a transition period. I said, "Look, I need you to stay so that your employees don't get all shook up that you're selling. I need you to stay at least 1 year." And that gave me this smooth landing kind of a situation. And so when I succeeded with that, um, I learned about Reginald Lewis. Reginald Lewis, well, I should say after. I learned about Reginald Lewis. He bought Beatrice Foods. He was the first black man to own $1 billion business. Um, I was introduced to him, and he mentored me. And so my next deal I bought was a much more sophisticated deal. It was an electrical engineering firm doing 8 million a year in electrical engineering contracts with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. And I bought it with only 5,000 of my own money and took it to 20 million in 1 year. Now I'm bit by the bug for real. I'm seeing the value of acquiring over starting. When you go to the bank to try to get money to start, that's a challenge. What do you have? A business plan with projections. When you go to the bank with tax returns from the business you're trying to buy, what if you go to the same bank they bank at?
They gave you all of the money to buy the business and you put 5,000 in.
I bought a business that was doing 8 million a year with 5,000 of my own.
So how did you get all of the financing? What did you pay for that business?
I leveraged the assets of the business. The business had accounts receivables. The business owned a building. The business had equipment. I leveraged those assets to get the money I needed to buy the business. The 5,000 was pretty much for lawyers. And I do this to this day. I'm doing a deal right now, a manufacturing business in Florida. And by the way, these industries that I've been involved in, I knew nothing about them before I got involved. Nothing. I was not experienced at it at all. I later went into the telecommunications business. We provided telephone service to the Department of Defense, the White House, and Camp David. Started that deal with no money of my own. I'm really getting more sophisticated at it at this point. And we did 70 million a year. But here's the thing: I knew nothing about the telephone business. Absolutely nothing. I knew nothing about electrical engineering. I knew nothing about a restaurant, a store. I knew nothing about any of that. But what I did know something about was the common denominator. And what is that? Humans. Humans are the customers. Humans, that's the owner. Humans work there. That's the common denominator. And what's common about humans? What's in it for me? That's what everyone's thinking. What's in it for me? And so if you approach things realizing that, and you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about the humans you're dealing with on whatever level. If it's the owner, if it's the customer, if it's the guy that sweeps the floor, these are all humans and they all have that thing in common. What's in this for me? Not you, me.
Did you ever have anything that went wrong?
Always. Things went wrong every day. Every day.
Like, did you buy a business that fell apart?
Fortunately, I was always able to make the adjustments that I needed to make. And I I learned playing baseball as a kid. If you swing for the fences, if you're trying to get a home run, you're going to have more strikeouts. In business, I use that to understand, you know what, I'm not betting the farm unless the crops are on fire. I'm not stepping out too far that I can't step back. And that saved me in many instances. I wasn't trying to get a home run in every move I made. I was just trying to get on base. Now I can make the adjustment. Everyone should plan. You should have a goal and you should plan. But you should also realize absolutely no one succeeds according to plan. No one, ever. It's the adjustment that you make. Don't make the same mistake twice. Make your adjustment. Don't stop. Only death can stop you now if you're using that approach. Time is always on your side. There's more time. I learned that playing basketball, starting in high school for my high school team. Hey, if there's time left on the clock, the game's not over. No matter how far we're down, there's time on the clock. Game's not over. We're playing to win.
Hey, just give me 10 seconds of your time. I really appreciate you listening to the episode so far, and I hope you're loving it. And if you are, I would love to ask you to subscribe to the channel, because what we do is a lot of work. And every week we bring you a new guest and a new story. And what we do requires so much love so that we can bring you something amazing. And every week we're trying really hard to get better guests that have better stories and improve our ability to tell their stories. So your subscription lets the algorithm know that what we're doing is fantastic. And no commitment, it's free to do. And if you don't like what we're doing later on, you can always unsubscribe. And either way, we would love a like if you don't feel like subscribing at this time. If someone likes the idea of acquiring a business they know nothing about, even though that sounds scary as hell to probably everybody, what is the thing that they need to tell themselves to help them get through that fear so that they're more likely to take the next step to actually do it?
Anything you're trying to do that you haven't done before is going to appear to be very difficult to you at first. But if you think about learning how to ride a bike, you'll realize that once you start it, you've discovered it wasn't as hard as you thought it was going to be. After a couple of falls, you figure out how not to have those falls. So everything you can learn how to do it, everything. But you can't from the sidelines. You have to actually get on the bike to learn how to ride a bike. You have to get started. And so that's what I've always realized, that no, I don't know anything about this, but I will learn what I need to learn. And especially if I don't try to go for the home run, I just want to get on base.
So, what model do you use to look for these kinds of opportunities? I know you've already mentioned that the business has assets that you can use to get a loan.
Well, yeah, that's the first thing I look for. I mean, come on, let's face it. I'm a black man, and it has tended to be a little more difficult for me to borrow from the bank, for example. I'm looking for an asset heavy business, a business that has assets that gives me something to leverage, as opposed to, for example, a software business that doesn't have, where I'm going to be selling software as a service. I'm looking for an asset heavy business, like say it's a trucking company. They have trucks. So now I have something I can leverage. So that's the first thing. I'm looking for an owner that will give me that transition period that I can say, hey, look, I need you to stay in. Matter of fact, I want you to stay in. I'll give you. I'll buy 80% of the business, not 100. You keep 20. And so for during this transition period, they're really involved in helping me grow this business. That takes a lot of the risk out for me, and it reduces my learning curve because I'm right there growing it with the founder, with the CEO. It's excellent. I'm I'm on the job training from the best. The person that birthed this baby and grew it. And they're in it and they're enjoying being in it with new blood because you see they started it. They were fired up when they started it. They were aggressive, but lately they haven't been. There I tend to buy from baby boomer age men or women. They're older. They're looking to retire. They haven't been very aggressive with their business lately. Plus, we have new technology now, like never before. So you certainly can make a business more efficient today when you come in to own it. Absolutely, you can.
So the other thing that scares me about acquiring someone's business is, what if things go sideways and now I have to put my own money in to keep it alive?
But if things go sideways, if and you have to put your own money in, well, that's what you would have to do. So what that says is, number one, everyone would be that wants to do something entrepreneurial would benefit from learning how to live within their means, accumulate some. I mean, I have a bias. I started saving when I was 4 years old. It benefited me to do that. It would benefit everyone to practice living within their means so that they can accumulate some assets, accumulate some liquidity, and be in a position to put out the fire that's inevitably gonna happen, no matter what. I know many successful people, but I don't know anyone that succeeded without perseverance. They succeeded because they persevered. They just didn't stop.
If I acquire a business that's doing $1 million a year in revenue and it gets in the hole for 100,000 somehow, I just have to suck it up and put the 100K in and fix it.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. You can't quit. You you have to practice making those adjustments along the way that you need to make. And you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be authentic. You need to authentically acknowledge where you are. You can't know how to get someplace you want to get to without knowing where you are. So you must look at your books every week. You must look at, when you go to see a doctor, and I just came from one. I go every 6 months and they draw blood and all of that. But what do? They check your vital signs. Well, a business has vital signs too. You need to be checking your business's vital sign, and you need to be checking your business's blood on a regular basis so that you can see how are you trending. Are you getting sick or are you getting healthy? You need to do that. And too often, especially mom and pop businesses, they're not doing that. They're running blind. You need to look at what's happening with your profit margins. You need to look at the signals that your business will tell you, the numbers will tell you what's happening if you were looking. But too often, we're in a mom and pop business, especially, we're so busy working in the business and we don't have time to work on it. I want to work on a business, not in it.
What's the biggest hole you've had to cover financially with one of these businesses, if ever?
Oh, I've been under. I've been under. I invested in real estate quite heavily, and so I got hurt with the Great Recession. Hurt me badly.
You lost properties?
Oh, big time.
How did you respond to that? Did you recover and after that reinvest, or did you stay out? Did you kind of like feel hurt and say, I'm going to avoid this?
When I acquired E3 Engineering, and I'm doing business with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, it was when Toyota finally surpassed the big three to become number one. And so the big three wanted to know, well, how did they do it? And it turned out that it was the Toyota production system. And one of the pillars of the Toyota production system was that they practice a continuous improvement process, which means psychologically, they didn't push back against change. They purposefully, continuously improved. I began to practice that myself, a continuous improvement process. No matter how well I'm doing, no matter how poorly, I'm constantly, continuously looking for where can I improve. Small improvements in, let's say, 12 different areas of your business, that that changes night to day, as opposed to trying to change one thing big time. So again, it's about mindset. It's about how are you thinking, how are you setting things up. That makes the difference.
So, with that in mind, if someone is coming from a place of maybe they have a job now, but they're curious about being an entrepreneur, they don't have an idea for their own business, maybe they're interested in acquiring a business, they're inspired by this interview, they don't really have much money saved, if anything, because I think that's very common in America. What size of a business would you encourage them to look at acquiring so that they don't get absolutely destroyed if there is a bad result that they have to cover?
It sure helps to be mentored. I first was mentored playing little league baseball, then high school basketball. I had coaches. It helps. And then I was mentored by Reginald Lewis. It, it's awesome to have a mentor, someone that has already done what you want to do. Find that mentor so that you won't have to have all the same mistakes they had.
So find a mentor before you try to buy something.
That's what worked for me.
It happened for me as well, and it changed my life very quickly because I was able to apply what I learned.
At my dinner table, there was no talk about owning a business. There was talk about going to school and getting a good job. And so I had to go find someone, not at my dinner table, go find someone that had a different experience. Where I grew up, the men worked in factories. They had a pretty good life working in these factories, but when I was in college during the summer, I worked at Chrysler. No, I don't think I want to work in a factory. It's too dirty and it's too hard.
I learned something similar because when I was in high school, I was very fortunate. My brother was well connected with the teacher in charge of the network of our computers. We had 1,400 computers in our school of 6,000 students. And my brother was able to get me into this private class with the teacher. There's only 11 kids in the school in this group, and our responsibility was for the first 2 hours of the day to make sure that any computer that's broken, any requests from the teachers were handled, and it was our job to do that. We had to make sure that the hardware and the software and the internet didn't have any problems. Nothing went down. It had to be live at all times. And what I learned from those 2 years was that I never wanted a career doing that, but I loved the experience of doing it.
That's great to know what you don't want. Often when I'm interviewing people, I ask, I ask, what do you want to achieve? Someone saying, I want to start a business. What do you want to achieve? Well, people think about that a little. They think about the money part, but I peeled the onion on them because it's never just about making money, what someone wants to achieve. But I'm going to tell you what they don't think enough about. The next question I ask is, what do you want to avoid? Now they have to think. They haven't thought about that. And that's very important. What do you want to avoid? And that's what you learned with that experience, something you wanted to avoid. You knew you didn't want to do that.
When I was in college, my degree was in psychology, and in the last 2 semesters, I had to take one class and make it what I wanted it to be. So one of them, they weren't formal classes. I had to tell the school, I'm going to do this thing. That's my semester for this class. So in one of the semesters, I worked alongside a graduate student who was running an experiment, and my job was to help them facilitate the experiment. And in her specific case, this graduate student was testing if we put senior citizens in front of a PlayStation 2 and we let them shoot at Nazis, does it make their hand-eye coordination get better, and does it make them happier as individuals? And while I loved the experience, I realized that I didn't like the idea of being a researcher. And the other semester, I went to an elementary school several days a week, and I worked alongside the speech pathologist and the behavioral therapist. And my job was to shadow them, see what they're doing, help them if they need. And so in one case, the kids were they'd have issues with speech, so we'd have to help them with their pronunciation, things like that, to help them to develop better strategies to cope with that and improve their speech. And the other one, the kids were from homes where they had problems, and so they were having behavioral issues in school. And so my job was to talk with them and see if I could get them to communicate a little bit about what's going on at home, to help them feel like it's okay, it's safe at school, they can still learn and not have to act out. Unfortunately, a lot of them did. And while I loved the opportunity to work with these people and these children, I also realized I didn't want to do those jobs because it was very emotionally draining to do that.
I'm 74 now. I don't know how fast I got here so quick. Life is quick, man. It's short. And I don't want to live my life like I'm running on a treadmill, never getting anywhere. Like when do I get to be me? When do I get to do what I would do if I wasn't on that treadmill because I have to pay bills? Most of us, that's how we live. We work a job we don't really like, but we have to pay bills, so we're willing to do it. We're on this treadmill, we're running, but we're not getting anywhere. We're just paying bills, and then we get old, and then we die. No, thank you. I think everyone is so unique and so special that they need to express themselves. They need to be themselves. They need to do what they like doing. Most of us don't do that. We never do it. What a waste. Do what you like doing. Find a way to do that. And I think, again, I'm biased. For me, entrepreneurship has been it. I have a friend I grew up with. He said, "Man, when are you going to retire?" Now, he was working at Home Depot with the same age. I said, "Retire? I've never thought of it. It's never crossed my mind. I don't work. I do what I love doing." You're like asking me, when am I going to stop doing what I love doing? Never. Why would I stop doing what I love doing? I understand you were at Home Depot. You couldn't wait to get out of there. I can't wait to wake up in the morning because I'm always working on the next deal. I'm always working on the next experience that makes me a better human being. Can't wait. I start every day. My first meeting is at 6 a.m. It's not work. I can't wait for that meeting. I want to get going, man. I love living life because I'm doing what I love doing. We should live like that. We should do we should do that. And if we start off not making any money or much money, we'll figure it out. It'll come. Hey, my first job, I was bussing tables. I didn't make much money bussing tables, but I figured it out. That's what we should do. And corporations are no longer loyal to employees, only shareholders and customers. Donald Trump is firing people with an hour's notice. Could you imagine that? You got kids in college, a mortgage to pay. You show up to work and you discover everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. I don't care how much they make. They make more money, they buy more house. So, gee whiz, is a job security? No, not to me. I don't think so. I think owning the job is security.